Babysitting rule. Don't mention the man in the basement. Part 7. Hey guys, sorry I didn't fill you in sooner about what happened after I found the priest. I was in shock. I think I still am. After I saw him slumped over in the car, I called 911. Again. The paramedics came fast, thank God. He was unconscious, bleeding badly from a gash on his head. They said it looked like he might have broken his collarbone too when the car smashed against the tree. He's stable now, but he's in the hospital. Jaime was just as shaken as I was. His little body was trembling when I held him, and his eyes wouldn't leave the window, like he was waiting for something else to happen. I called his parents to come home early, just telling them something serious had happened, but not giving any details. When David and Margaret finally returned, the flashing lights were gone. The paramedics had already taken the priest to the hospital, leaving behind only silence and the wreck. His small blue car still sat crumpled against the massive tree at the end of the drive, rain streaming over the shattered glass and twisted metal, glinting faintly in the glow of the porch light. I thought they'd come running, frantic with worry, firing questions, pulling Jaime into their arms after the distressing scene he'd clearly witnessed. That's what parents are supposed to do, isn't it? But I should have known better by now. Margaret's face was pale but unreadable, her voice flat, as she told Jaime it was almost 9 and to go up to bed. No questions, no comfort, just routine. I instantly regretted calling them. Jaime would have been better off if it had just stayed the two of us. At least I would have taken him upstairs, tucked him in, held him close until the trembling stopped. My every instinct screamed to protect him, while his parents' only instinct seemed to be to distance themselves, to neglect him. How could they be so cruel, so cold, so detached? It was my hand Jaime clung to, and I swear, the way he looked at me, it was like I was the only person in the world he could count on. My chest tightened as he reluctantly let go of my hand to follow his mother's instruction. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying everything, trying to think of how I could save Jaime. And what I did next? I know you'll think I'm crazy for what I did. Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight. But after everything that had happened, after seeing how terrified Jaime was, I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't leave him there. Not with that thing in the basement. Not with parents who seemed content to look the other way. So I made a plan to take him away from the house, just for one night. I knew it was risky and technically kidnapping, but every time I thought about Jaime trembling in that bed, eyes wide with fear, clutching at the sheets as shadows moved around him, I felt my resolve harden. The following Friday, I watched the clock obsessively as David and Margaret got ready to leave. Their movements were mechanical, like they were used to leaving him behind, like it wasn't even a choice. Once the front door clicked shut, I let myself exhale, but only slightly. I was on edge. I pulled out the note I had written in advance and left it carefully on the kitchen table. David and Margaret, I took Jaime to a motel for the night. He's fine, just needs a break from the house. We'll be back tomorrow morning by 9 a.m. X. I know most parents would completely freak out, call the police, press charges, but I had a feeling they'd almost be relieved, happy to have a break from him. They probably wouldn't even notice anyway. They act like he doesn't even exist. Still, I knew what I was doing was risky. I might get an earful in the morning, or more, but it would be worth it to see Jaime be able to relax and escape whatever is in the house. I knelt in front of Jaime in the living room. "Hey, want to go on a little adventure?" I asked softly, keeping my tone light, almost playful. His big eyes blinked up at me, hesitant, and I felt my chest tighten. I could see the confusion there, but also something else. Trust. Somehow, after just a couple of months, he trusted me enough to follow me anywhere. "Pack your blanket and you're bare," I whispered. I gave him a reassuring smile, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. His small hands went to his things like he understood exactly what he needed to do. When he followed me to the car without another word, my heart pounded. What if something went wrong? What if his parents called the police? What if? I drove, keeping my eyes on the road and my hands tight on the wheel. The house slowly receded in the rearview mirror, its looming silhouette shrinking into the night. With every mile, a strange sense of relief began to settle in my chest, mingled with guilt. I was breaking the rules. I was going behind the parents' backs. But at the same time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, a few hours away would make him feel normal. I chose a motel on the outskirts of town. It was plain, almost shabby. 2 twin beds, a small table, a flickering lamp, and the faint scent of old carpet. Nothing like home, nothing fancy, but it was all I could afford. Plus, it wasn't that house. That's what mattered. This felt like safety. I tucked Jaime into one of the beds, arranging his blanket just right, placing his bear beside him. His small frame seemed even smaller as he curled up under the covers, his eyes wide and alert. I sat on the edge of the bed, brushing his hair back and murmuring the same words over and over like a mantra. You're safe. Nothing can hurt you here. I'm right here. But it wasn't. It seemed like within minutes his color drained. His lips went pale, almost blue, and he started to shiver despite the heavy blanket around him. I fetched a bottle of water, tilting it carefully to his lips. Just a sip, I whispered, but he turned his head weakly, eyes glassy. I tried again and again until he swallowed the smallest mouthfuls. Then he vomited. Thick, tar-like liquid poured from his mouth, splattering onto the sheets. My stomach lurched. It was red. Was it blood? What had he eaten? I grabbed towels, my hands shaking as I cleaned him, whispering, It's okay. I've got you. It's okay. He whimpered softly, curling into himself. Panic clawed at me. I searched through my bag, pulled out crackers, some potato chips, anything. Please, just a bite, I begged, but he pushed it away. His skin was burning hot, his body trembling like it was tearing him apart from the inside. Every few minutes, his body would lurch forward and more vomit would come flooding out. I wet a washcloth in the sink and pressed it to his forehead. The fever radiated so intensely it made me flinch. His eyes rolled slightly, unfocused, and his breathing grew ragged. I sat on the bed beside him, holding his hand, trying to steady my own racing pulse. My chest ached with the weight of it. Is it allergies? Is it food poisoning? What is happening to you? I whispered, terrified of the answer. I tried everything, but nothing helped. He grew weaker, his little body twitching, his voice fading into low, painful moans. He was deteriorating. Finally, with my own hands shaking and tears blurring my vision, I pulled out my phone and called his parents. David, Margaret, something's wrong with Jaime, I cried. He's burning up, vomiting. He's barely breathing. I don't know what to do. Silence. Then Margaret's voice, shrill and panicked. Wait, did you take him out of the house? David's voice followed, sharp and broken. You don't understand. You can't just... I had to, I shouted, almost sobbing. I thought if I took him away, if I got him out, it would stop. But he's worse. He's so much worse. On the other end of the line, they were frantic. You need to bring him back, now. You can't protect him anywhere else. He won't survive away from the house. The words made no sense, but their tone told me everything. They believed it. They knew something I didn't. I hung up, my whole body trembling, and scooped Jaime into my arms. His head lolled weakly against me, his skin clammy and cold, despite the fever. I whispered to him as I buckled him into the car seat. We're going back, baby. I'm sorry. I'll keep you safe. The drive back was a blur of panic and prayer. Every bump in the road jolted his frail body. Every groan from him made my stomach twist tighter. His breathing was shallow, his hands limp. I kept one hand on his chest, feeling it rise and fall. terrified it might stop altogether. When we pulled up to the house, David and Margaret were already waiting outside, their faces pale with fear. They rushed to me, their voices urgent but breaking. They didn't yell, they didn't scold. They just looked terrified. Together, we carried him inside and laid him in his bed. It was the first time I saw a real flicker of concern from them. "Should we call an ambulance?" I suggested, my voice trembling as I looked at him. Every instinct screamed at me that this wasn't just a normal sickness, that something far worse was happening. "We can't!" David snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut through the thick tension hanging in the room. It wasn't just a refusal. It was almost a growl, guttural and raw. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, his knuckles bone white. The anger in his tone startled me. Until then, he'd always been calm, distant, almost hollow. "You don't understand," he said again. But this time, there was a tremor under the anger, like fear barely disguised. "There are things you don't know, things you couldn't know. You keep saying I don't understand. Then tell me," I said, my own voice low but shaking. "Tell me what's going on." He glanced at Margaret, who looked pale and shaken, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. She wouldn't meet my eyes. It felt like a secret was pressing between the two of them, something dark and unspoken that neither of them could bring themselves to say aloud. My unanswered request hung in the air. I dropped it. Right now, the priority was Jaime. Minutes dragged like hours. Jaime coughed and whimpered, but the vomiting finally stopped. His little body sagged into the mattress, exhausted. His temperature returned to normal. Slowly, his breathing evened out. He clutched his blanket, his lips moving in restless murmurs, until finally he drifted into a fragile sleep. I sat beside him until I could trust he was safe for the moment, then followed his parents into the living room. The fire crackled in the grate, shadows flickering on the walls. The three of us sat in silence for a long time, the weight of the night pressing down. Finally, Margaret spoke, her voice trembling. "We can never leave. Jaime, he's attached to the house. Attached to it. We've tried to keep it from him for years. He asks to go outside, to go to school, to play with other children, but it's impossible." My heart stopped. The words felt like ice in my veins. "What do you mean attached? Attached to what?" I whispered. "We don't have all the answers," Margaret faltered. "All we know is that when Jaime leaves the house, this is what happens. He gets sick. We've been to hospitals, doctors, psychologists. The only thing that stops it is being in this house." I didn't even know what to say. None of this made any sense. My thoughts tangled in the silence, searching for something solid to hold on to. But beneath the confusion, one question burned brighter than the rest. The one thing I wanted to understand. Who is the man in the basement? Margaret looked unsure of how to answer me. Jamie's too young to understand, so we call it the man in the basement. I shook my head slowly, the words refusing to fit together. But what is it? What are you calling the man in the basement? Things can get worse within this house. Her voice faded into silence. She didn't stop because she wanted to, but because she no longer knew what to say. They both stayed silent. I wanted to scream at them, to shake them, to make them tell me everything they knew. But the fight had already drained out of them. They looked hollow, worn down by years of fear and exhaustion, like people who'd been living the same nightmare for too long. And I knew they were done with this conversation. And in that moment, I realized maybe they were done because there was nothing more to say. Maybe they didn't have the answers. The fire popped, filling the silence. I looked back toward Jamie's room, where the little boy lay shivering, innocent, and terrified. caught in something none of us understood.